In a world and time when so much is changing, there is still so much of our culture that has to be documented and kept alive. Who are the bearers of these precious living cultures? How do they pass on a knowledge transmitted through the ages? What they represent has survived colonization, conflict, marginalization, and yet they persist. Sila ang sisidlan, the living vessels that store dayaw, our knowledge, our pride. The Kawad sa Manlilikha ng Bayan, or the National Living Treasures Award, is a distinction accorded by the Philippine government to the finest traditional artists of the land. The search is conducted by the National Commission for Culture and the Arts and an ad hoc panel of experts. The distinction was institutionalized through Republic Act 7355 in April of 1992. Since its inception, the award has been bestowed on 13 traditional artists. All who heard him play on the two-string kudyapi knew that they were in the presence of a great artist. The instrument that he chose to express this virtuosity was the most technically difficult of the two-stringed lutes popular among both the Islamic and animist people of Mindanao. Of its two strings, one provided the rhythmic drone, while the other has movable frets that allow melodies to be played in two sets of pentatonic scales. Scholars have described the music of the Maguindanao Kudyapi as mystical, delicate, celebrative. But all words pale when one listens to existing footage of Samaon Sulaiman. No explanations, no academic notes can quite explain the hypnotic and sensual quality of his music.
The late great Samaon Sulaiman, a fantastic performer. I was told by one Maguindanao, who's from a different part of Cotabato, that when Samaon plays, he speaks and you can hear what he's saying and it's so beautiful. He was really a wonderful artist on the Kudyapi. He really imbibed yung spirit of being Filipino. Kasi for him, it was not just his community. Although he lived in his community, he worked there. When there were other events in other parts of the Philippines involving Gamaba, he would go. He went as far as Kalinga.
A chanter of epics and storyteller from the Macagua Valley in Palawan, Masino Interay was also a poet and musician. In 1993, just as he was about to be declared among the first recipients of the Gamaba distinction, he was recorded in the forests of Brooks Point, where he chanted a portion of a Palawanon epic. He also demonstrated his skill at reciting the lyrical poem Kulilal, as well as a bagit, verse inspired by the images and animals of his forest home. Then, together with his friends, he played on the basal ensemble, a mix of large and small agong, accompanied by the gimbal or tubular drum, to the joy of the villagers. Complementing the music was the dancing of the women, their feet beating out complementary rhythms on the bamboo floor of the community house. In our search for the exotic and colorful other, we often overlook the true gifts of a people. In the case of Masino Intaray, his gift mirrors the traditional Palawanon knowledge of the forests, the stars, and the cosmos, a universe he was at home with, a cosmos that was home to his people. Creative memory, endurance, clarity of intellect, and spiritual purpose. For these most valuable of possessions, Masino Intaray was found worthy.
Ginaw Bilog, who was a Mangyan that really devoted his own life, no, to preserve as much as possible the Ambahan tradition in Oriental Mindoro, using the Surat Mangyan, or what we call Baybayin. No? And so this is really a tradition worth preserving, simply because in many other parts of the country, this Surat Mangyan or Baybayin is no longer used.
Ginaw Bilog, a Hanunuo Mangyan from Mansalay, Oriental Mindoro, grew up still hearing the Ambahan poetry used by his community to express love, traditional wisdom, sage advice, common courtesies, and humor. The 7-syllable lines conveyed messages through the use of metaphor and creative images. He also grew up using the Surat Mangyan, the pre-colonial syllabary that links the Mangyan to other Southeast Asian cultures. His mastery of this difficult form and his desire to revive and popularize it among the young Mangyan made him worthy of the Gamaba distinction. Today, the heritage that Ginaw Bilog helped revive is carried on by his family, his children, who were his most ardent students. Even today, among the Tiboli of Lake Cebu, the name of Lang Dulay is spoken of in awe and admiration. Her legacy as the first ever Tiboli weaver to be awarded the Gawad sa Manlilikanang Bayan extends far beyond her skill at weaving abaca fibers into tinalak cloth. Her mastery of the process of dyeing the threads and producing both traditional as well as contemporary adaptations of these designs gained her many students and followers.
She was a leader. Her school was a big school and she had many followers and she was able to train many of them. And I heard her once talking about what she had learned from the Gamaba and about the other international events that she had been brought to. And she said something like, you know, I learned the value of education. Sabi niya, education is so important. And so she was talking to the younger people in her village. And she was saying, so if I were you, that's what I would invest in. That's why her school was one of the most successful of all the Gamaba schools.
Ang yu kalawi ro tinanay, bayu alakom yogonan hayu kagano mudu ni dan ketanan da goberno. Yogonan hayu kagano mudu na legal. Hasa mudu na. Dum mun te kambe ho bali mustulu. Ini kengah nagi unon ligana wa.
although inabal, the abaca ikat produced by the bagobo is not as visually stunning as a tinalak of the tiboli. The dual tinali patterns are more minute and difficult to execute. Salinta Monon, a Tagabawa bagobo weaver from Bansalan, Davao del Sur, specialized in the complex small-scale ikat technique.
She was a quieter person. And I think very introspective kasi what I remember about her is she wouldn't let people come near her house. She had a weaving house of her own. She would be alone before she wove. And so, all the time she would be weaving. Walang pwedeng manggulo sa kanya. So talagang very introspective na tao si Salinta.
The mat or banig produced by the weavers of Ungus Matata in Tawi-Tawi are renowned for their dizzying and complex geometric designs, the high density and surface sheen of the woven surface, as well as the amazing, often surprising color combinations. Hadja Amina Api's body of work was honored by the Gamaba Committee for the finer details often overlooked by other weavers. They cited the straightness of her edging and the mastery of such complicated designs as the sasa and kima-kima. She was also an expert at all the stages of mat weaving, from the processing of the wild pandan leaves to the use of natural and commercial dyes. Her exuberant sense of color was also much admired. Silk, the production of its threads, and the weaving of these threads into garments and wraps both for men and women, was a highlight on the weaving tradition of Islamic Filipinos. Among the Tausug, the pishiabit was a square textile prized for the intricacy of its design, as well as the suppleness of the silk thread. The tradition of silk weaving has long died out and it is only recently being revived. But in the work of Darhata Sawabi, the colorful and complex design aesthetic of the Tausug Pishiabit lived on in cotton and commercial threads. Darhata Sawabi of Barangay Parang in Jolo was perhaps the last master of this jewel of Philippine textile. Never married, she managed to attain financial independence through the weaving of pishiabit, a woven square, 39 by 40 inches, took 3 months to weave. For her masterworks, she charged only 2,000 pesos apiece. This is the quandary that many of our traditional artists face. A weaver from Pinili, Ilocos Norte, and perhaps the oldest of the Gamaba winners, at the time when she was honored, Magdalena Gamayo's frail frame and quiet demeanor belies the strength of her weaves and the impact of her work on her community.
Magdalena Gamayo, well, when she was given the award in 2012, she was already 88.
Gamayo specializes in the weaving of the hardy cotton fabric called abel by the Ilocano. The binakol pattern, a complex abstraction said to represent the whirlwind, is one of her specialties. Many variations of the binakol exist, and she still retains the complex mathematics of its construction in her mind and in her heart. But for a skill to survive, there is a need for base raw material of her choice, kapas or locally grown cotton.
Isu tadi mama dunga kulay na panait di tabanggar kapag datangan mo.
Gamayo's wish is for more young Ilocanos to learn from her and to inherit and carry on the knowledge which she is only a vessel of.
Tatinda kang mumanta, bakita mo tunayan di mamo no ababati diagkon no na manayong pay no madanong kote sa nga gasutatawan no saan minisungay karkararag ko kunapo Diyos no manayo na kailang agyaw kaya po mapayag pay ang dati rigat ko nga sa kinabakit.
Magdalena is a master of a wide range of repertoire. She can do many designs, techniques, color combinations that a single weaver will not be able to do. So she's really very unusual. That was what made her stand out from all the others. Also the refinement of her technique. So again, quiet person, but beautiful textiles.
A gourd hat may seem like a simple thing, an item dismissed as a folksy Filipiniana. But in the creations of Teofilo Garcia, an Ilocano living in San Quintin, Abra, the gourd hats or tabungao that he creates are a result of agricultural knowledge, time-honored and functional design, and simple but pleasing aesthetic sensibilities. What others may see as just a hat is in fact an object that shows just how deeply traditional Filipino craftsman was attuned to his environment. For Garcia, it all begins with growing the perfectly spherical upo. With a perfect gourd to work with, he now begins the process of creating a hat.
Malpasen nga maani rin yung tabungaw. Ragadjun nga agkatwa. Pagkatapos, kalpasan na rin dyan, no malungsot dalusan. No madalusanan ipamaga. Apaman nga mamagaan, mabalinin nga singun para aramihin na kalubuhay. No madisinyon, nakasagana mo ta dyan, lingkan, sakam, ratan, sa gusto, plastic food. Papasan lang nga ma-assemble. So, matipanan.
With the Gamaba recognition came the sudden resurgence of interest in the hat as a statement of one's identity, as well as a need for Teofilo to pass on his knowledge.
Itag damamam natuding anak nga di National High School sa Quintin. Panisok ko.
He's really an unusual person. because since the time that he was awarded, they have been able to put together a program in elementary school. Practical arts, one whole year yata or one semester of curriculum based on his hat weaving. Now, and it's very interesting kasi the planning starts with the planting of the upo. They start with the planting of the upo, and then he teaches them. It's a special variety of upo, not any variety will do. And then yung harvesting, and then yung collecting of materials, and there is a curriculum. So he's really an unusual person to be able to do that and to teach it. He teaches it in the elementary school in his community. For me, that's the ideal, really, of Gamaba. So you have to give it to him. He's such a quiet man also.
Indeed, Saklag, a native of Lubuagan, is very different from the other Gamaba masters in that he is devoted to preserving not just a particular aspect of his culture. His passion covers dance, music, chanting, architecture, spiritual and social rituals of the Kalinga. The Awichon village in Lubuagan is his own tribute to the Kalinga culture he grew up loving.
Noon, pag lalo na kung successful ang kayo sa tribal war, isa yun na parang victory dance. Ang isa, kung may parang piyesta, ganun, pues sumayaw, at may parang mag-asawa, parang wedding, parang pwede rin yun, sumayaw. Pero nag-umpisa noon yung sayaw na iyon nasa victory dance sa tribal. Kaya walang ngumiti. Kasi warrior. Pati babae walang ngumiti sa sayaw na yung tachok. Puwera yung salip na ang tawag namin doon ay salip, yung parang courtship na babae at lalaki. Moy ja ipa ila, oh moy ja ipa ila, elala, elala, elala. Ako lalo dahil ako Ilugwagin.
In Alonzo Saklag, we see a Filipino who is passionate about the preservation of all aspects of his culture, and the passion, even at his age, seems unabating. The establishment and training of the Kalinga Budong dance troupe he established is easily the most accessible form of learning for both his Kalinga participants and his eager audience. A man of few words, Eduardo Mutok seems like the proverbial introspective artist who would much rather let his work speak for himself. And what thoughts, what words and memories are revealed by his glistening masterworks. On altars and carrozas, on frontals and other pieces of religious furniture, Mutok's work connects us to the gilded age of our own Catholicism, when altars were replete with the Baroque refinements and excesses. Call or describe it in artsy terms for this quiet man, his is simply the art of pukpok, or beaten metal. The masterwork commissioned by the late national artist Ramon Obusan is now the proud centerpiece of Bahay ni Kuya, the study center that houses Obusan's vast collection of archival footage, folk dance, notations, and material artifacts. The piece allows a deeper understanding of Mutok's skill both as a designer and craftsman. Mutok's ability to design became evident when he demonstrated how his vision is transformed from a piece of paper to a finished beaten plate. In the work of Eddie Mutok, I am reminded of that old Jesuit motto that all things we do for the greater glory of God, ad majorem de gloriam.
Humadap ng sa bukad yung tarang ban bukay nga ke rendalan ambuya.
When the interview was conducted, Federico Caballero had just lost a son, but he bravely went on sharing his knowledge and his passion for the chant that he had been recognized for. Perhaps in the tragedy that had befallen their family, he was all the more deeply aware of the impermanence of life, as well as a need to continue an epic tradition that he was only a vessel of.
Taran lamang si kulabu kulambaw si ombaw amantolin gasabura katin as gasabu.
A sulud Bukidnon from the mountains of central Panay, he has mastered the 10 important epic tales of his people. He chants these in the Kinaraya language. This great oral tradition would have been lost had not Caballero persevered in committing the epics to memory. Traditionally sung while lying on a hammock, the stories of mythic heroes like Labaw Dungon and Humadapnon come to life, much as his own grandmother's chanting brought them to life for the young Federico. Today he continues to work with the Bureau of Non-Formal Education, traveling from barangay to barangay and encouraging older folk to learn to read and write. He knows the importance of committing to paper the vanishing epics and life ways of his people. In many ways, Federico Caballero is his own epic story. When I first listened to the music of Uwang Ahadas, I had to keep reminding myself that this virtuoso was in fact blind. Sophisticated is the word that comes to mind upon hearing the full yakan and psalm led by the virtuoso Uwang Ahadas. I can't help but wonder if his deep understanding, his exploration of these intricate overlaying of beats have anything to do with his blindness. If that is true, then his eye ailments have made his internal life so much deeper and much more rewarding. A native of Lamitan, Basilan, the young Uwang was said to have been punished by offended nature spirits because of his child play. If this is true, then the spirits must have given him an even deeper gift, a mastery of the complicated rhythms and instruments that make up the yakan musical ensemble. From the gabang or bamboo xylophone to the agung, to the deceptively simple quintangan kayu, to a gamut of other instruments, Uwang Ahadas has mastered them all and performs with an energy and bravura that matches the vibrancy of yakan music.
Kaya niya naisip na gumawa ng gabang dahil noong una, wala pa silang agong. Kaya sabi ng tatay niya, mauna muna siyang matuto sa gabang.
But perhaps the most joyous aspect of his music making is the fact that an entire family gets together to help him create this tapestry of sound. When dressed in their yakan finery, they become a living work of art, where the textiles, the colors, the movement, and the energy become one with the music.
What I do know about Uwang is that he has a fantastic family. They probably should be given a group prize. But they do almost anything. And music-wise, dance-wise, weaving-wise, all of them are really amazing and beautiful people. I recall seeing them all dressed up, no? To play in their traditional textiles, in their clothing. And you will be bowled over by them talaga because they look so stunning. And they display so much artistry.